Kit Harrington and Subversion. First, I'm going to talk about Kit Harrington, the news, what's been recent with him, and about how the trend with fandom menace and people that are against all the shitty things like Game of Thrones, the finale, how their favorite word is subversion, and how it annoys me. Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about the cast of Game of Thrones, I guess in particular, or highlighted by Kit Harrington and what's happened with him. And I want to say that I think the cast of Game of Thrones, especially the main characters, are probably traumatized, not only by the fact that the show's over, but by the fact that the last season was received so poorly and hated, in fact, almost universally, I would say. I was thinking a lot about Sophie Turner, Sansa Stark, what she said, how she said she thought it was disrespectful of the fans to want to petition the show be remade, the last season be remade, and adding that they worked very hard on the show. First of all, she's basically a kid, so, she gets off the hook for anything that she says. Secondly, like I said previously, most people, or a lot of people, work their asses off, incredible hours and whatnot, and they do not get the amount of success that Game of Thrones allowed for the actors and cast, afforded them. And I think that's what Kit Harrington said too. He said that he's mad, upset at the fans because he was pretty respectful about it, but because they all worked very hard. I mean, even personally, I've worked extremely hard on certain things, art that I'm pretty sure will never be seen by many people and will never earn me more than $1,000 in my lifetime. So I asked myself, what is it that is annoying about what she said? About that argument that we worked really hard on the show, so it's disrespectful for you to want us to, or want to reshoot the last season. And in fact, I don't think it is annoying. I think I can understand why they feel that way. But of course, I think it's the writers, D&D, Dumb and Dumber they're being called now, who were disrespectful to the actors and the cast and the crew, to give them such shabby material to build sets around and to act their hearts out on. I actually only have sympathy for the cast of Game of Thrones because, not mainly because of this, but first of all, because they spent 10 years on the show. Some of them grew up. Some of them have lived their whole lives acting on this show. Combine that with the fact that it was the most popular show on the planet, and so they are used. All they know, I mean, this is what it's like for a spoiled brat. In a way, they're kind of like spoiled brats. All they know is having everybody love their characters and their show. Like, adore it, right? That's all they know. They've grown up to it. Kind of like a 13-year-old whose parents spoil them, or they get really famous really early, etc. So they don't know what it's like to be obscure or to be criticized even. So there might be a sense of entitlement, especially from someone as young as like the Arya character or the Sansa character, actors. Because I could see them thinking, screw you, you're supposed to adore our show. How dare you not like our season 8? That's not fair. You have to adore it. You guys are assholes now. Anyways, so the fact that the show's ended, for them it must be like being the most popular kid in high school and then graduating high school and then realizing in the real world nobody really knows you. I was a little bit popular in high school, and that's exactly what it was like. You get out of high school and all of a sudden nobody looks at you or cares about you on the street because it's a big ocean now. Also, it's not like being in a band where, the Beatles, where the Beatles can break up because they can always get back together. And even if they lose their popularity, they can still get back together and make more music. This cast can never return to those characters, even if they wanted to. The only chance they have of returning to the characters is if they have like a party where they all dress up and they do it for free. Maybe they should, like every year. But I would say I don't know the answer. I'm curious what bothers the actors more. What's more traumatizing? The fact that the show's over, or the fact that people disliked it so much? I'm sure it's a combination of both, but I'd like to know the exact percentages. Is it 50-50? Is it 10-90? Enough about that. On to Subversion. And I guess it's still on the subject of spoiled brats. So disappointed fans are always talking about how annoyed they are how these TV shows do bullshit in the name of subversion. And some YouTubers are saying, oh, well, you know, Game of Thrones was for normies, was for everyone. And now they see how we felt when The Last Jedi was ruined, because they called us nerds and like, who cares? But now they see what it feels like. And again, I just think that these people are all like spoiled brats if this is the first time they've had to deal with some asshole claiming subversion in the name when it was really because of laziness. You've really never had to deal with this before? Star Wars and Game of Thrones is the only time this has happened to you? Where someone ruined your party by saying they were subverting things and they were actually just lazy. Because abstract art has been doing that for like 75 years to much more dire consequences. In fact, maybe that's where the idea of subverting expectations first came from. I wouldn't be surprised, because I think Rian Johnson made it popular, but he probably got it. He probably got the whole phrase from observing. He probably loves bullshit art, like abstract art. For example, and it's not just abstract art, it's atonal music, right? Music that doesn't care about having harmony, and it sounds like insanity. It sounds like a nightmare. And I remember 20 years ago I asked my dad, I'm like, how the hell do people do this bullshit? And my dad basically said, it's like when somebody parks in a parking spot that says no parking, and they think, holy shit, I must be a genius. I can't believe nobody's parked here. Right? Like, what? I can't believe I can just puke on a canvas and people call it high art. I can't believe, like, all those idiots like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, those idiots were actually painting in detail and developing ability. All they had to do was splotch bullshit on a canvas. You just take a shit on a canvas and it's just as good. I'm a genius. But anyways, more broadly speaking, the fact that the nerds are saying, oh, now the mainstream knows how we feel. Well, again, we can go back much further than Star Wars and The Last Jedi. Okay, you got DJs getting the attention from hip hop artists, and the hip hop artists are going, it's not fair. And while this is happening, you've got rock musicians saying, oh, now the hip hop artists now they know how it feels to have cruder quality music be taking the spotlight, because of course hip hop and rap is cruder than rock music, right? And DJing is cruder than hip hop. So you got the rock musicians being satisfied for the people that put them out of a job, being put out of a job by someone even dumber than they are. And above or beneath them, you've got the classical composers that are saying, haha, now the rock musicians know how it feels to be put out of a job by shitty art. Because rock music is shitty art, especially compared to classical music, right? So to all the nerds who are upset about The Last Jedi and Game of Thrones, I'm sitting back and going, ha ha ha, now you know what it feels like to have total bullshit put in your face. And I love the fact that you're mad and you're laughing at the mainstream for not understanding how you felt when something is, come on, let's face it, like crude as Star Wars or even Game of Thrones. I mean, it's not high art. Even Game of Thrones, even though it's extremely good writing, I wouldn't say it's high art. I forget how I was going to end that sentence, but yeah, you get the idea. Yeah, your precious Game of Thrones was ruined, and you can't believe that companies will actually ruin writing and they don't care about quality. It occurred to me today, you know, the Benioff and Weiss are probably idiots. They probably never cared about the show. They probably always only cared about making money. You know, I mean, the sad thing is The only things that get as big as Game of Thrones generally require the creative person behind it to be mainly money hungry, not caring particularly about art. They kind of accidentally create good art. George Lucas would be another example. And a great example, I just found this out recently, is Gene Roddenberry. He was going to make a Western, but for some arbitrary reason, he couldn't make a Western. Whatever, the company didn't want a Western at that time and told him he had to do a sci-fi series. So it's not like Star Trek was a passion project for him. It's not like he was inspired to make it, right? He just needed to cash a paycheck. Furthermore, to illustrate the lack of integrity of these people who are regarded to be geniuses who changed the world and were so creative. Okay, Gene Roddenberry wrote lyrics for the theme song that never were going to appear, so that he could take 50% of the music writing credit, so he could get the money. Right? These people rip people off, and they also take credit for other people's work. Walt Disney, Stan Lee. I think these people were mainly businessmen, and I think they took a lot of the credit from a lot of people that we've never heard of, who were the backbone, who did all of the work. So yeah, surprise, surprise, the show that you worshipped, that you thought was so wonderful, turned out to be corrupt. And yeah, now you all know how it feels. Now you know how I've felt for about 23 years. If you support gays, click like. If you respect blacks, comment. If you think women are people too, click the notification bell. And if you care about sick children, subscribe. I wouldn't be surprised if other YouTubers eventually, if they ever watch my video or videos, copy my end credit scene idea, because I think it's pretty creative for a YouTube channel. I mean, obviously I'm copying Marvel movies. I think the funniest part of the last season of Game of Thrones, maybe of the whole show, was when Bronn shows up out of nowhere. Jamie and Tyrion are sitting there. Basically, cut through all the bullshit of the dialogue and the crappy plots. This is it. Bronn pops in the door and says, "Hey there, how's it going? I know I haven't been here all season, but here I am. Okay, see you later." And he leaves. And then you don't see him again, basically again. I mean, it's reminiscent of The Room, where characters would just come and say, "Oh, hi, I just came to borrow some milk." "Oh, no, there's no milk? Okay, bye." And then they just leave. I mean, that's like 80s sitcom, Who's the Boss proportion level, cheesy and bad writing. Like, knock on the door. "Hey, how's it going?" "Oh, not bad. What's new?" I mean, like, the first thing you know about writing is that you don't start a scene like that. It's like, knock, knock, who's there? "Oh, it's me, Bronn." "Bronn who?" "Bronn with the Blackwater." "Okay, come in." "Okay, well, I gotta go now. See you later." "Okay, bye, Bronn."